Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to our first lecture of 2026. So, Happy New Year. Today, our lecture will be given by our friend Teresa with the theme, Who Am I? But before we start, we're going to do our initial reading that comes from the book Happy Life by the spirit Joana de Angelis and psychography by Divaldo Franco. Examine how much time you devote each day to your spiritual life. You work, get dressed, amuse yourself, eat, sleep, and you dedicate a few minutes to the incarnated spirit in a rapid prayer, a little reading, or you hear a talk, but at times you do none of these things. Man is not only the body mind, above all, he is a spiritual being who directs the body mind, implements, and demands spiritual attention to carry out the tasks that fall to him. The body needs care to live, but so does the soul. And with that, I invite you to close our eyes and elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, to the spiritual guides of TSS. And let's be thankful for this opportunity of being here today, all connected with the goal of reflection and learning a little bit more about Jesus' teachings. May our spiritual guides of TSS guide our friend Teresa in the talk that she'll give today. And maybe you all be blessed and enrolled in this beautiful environment that surrounds us. Thanks so much, and so be it.
All right, good morning, everyone. So as Thiago told us today, we're going to be talking about who I am. So why it's so important for us to know who we are, right? So what's important to look inside of me and really recognize who am I? And the main reason is because depending who we are, that's going to dictate our level of happiness and our level of sufferings. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How, by knowing who I am, is connected to my level of happiness and my level of suffering. Okay. So, who am I? Right? So, if each one of us here asks this question, or let's imagine here if we arrive to a place or you're on a job interview and someone comes to you and say, who are you? Okay. So most of us is going to say, oh, my name is Teresa. I was born and raised in Brazil. I moved to Canada when I was 26, which means 2 years ago. I don't. Denise almost choked with the water. Didn't understand why. Anyways, I came to Canada. I'm a physiotherapist. I work in a hospital. I'm a mere 68. I may talk about a little bit about my personality. You know, I'm outgoing or I'm shy. So that's what most of us would do, right? If someone asks you, so no, I'm married. I have kids. I don't have kids. My parents are so. That's how we describe who we are, right? The problem is, as a spiritist, we know that this is just one of the many reincarnations that we had. So those are characteristics or who I am here right now on this incarnation. On the previous incarnation, my name could have been Teresa as well, could be Mary, John, Joseph. And if I think about it, so many reincarnations, how many names I had it before? Yeah, on this one, I'm a physiotherapist. On the past one, maybe, I don't know what it was. Probably not an engineer because I'm horrible in math and physics and everything. But, maybe I was just a cleaning person, which is okay. I was, and if I go back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, if I go back to the Egyptian time, maybe I was the slave, fanning Cleopatra, which is much nicer than one working outside there, trying to build the pyramids, right? So I already put myself in a nice spot in there, right? I don't know. So basically, we're very good at describing who we are on this temporary state that we are here. And that's not that it's important, because that it is who I am. That is part of my who I am. That's part of my personality. And each one of us choose our professions because our personalities drive us to that professions, right? And probably highly connected to what we were before, kind of a building up, right? But those are only temporary states. Even the family, whoever is my mother this time, on the next reincarnation, may be my sister, my friend, so those are all transitional, right? Those are who we are here right now. Very important, again, because also those situations that we are here right now, the relationships, the professions, that's what's going to help us to keep building up who we truly are for the next reincarnations as well, right? But who we are really, it's a collection of the experience that we had right from, when we are living in the caves, okay? So we're building up, and that's why we all have completely different personalities. You can get twin brothers or sisters, and you're born the same day. They have, even genetically, they're pretty much almost 100% equal, with very small variations, but they have completely different personalities. Sometimes one's super shy, the other is super happy, because the spirits are different. They come with different experiences, okay? So what we really are is this collection of experiences and moral growth and things that we built until we are these days, okay? So who really are our sentiments, our values, and our moral state. That's who we are. But I have nobody, I don't think any of us, at least I would never do that. Right? You go to a job interview, it's like, oh, so who you are? Talk a little bit about yourself. Again, I'm going to say, oh, I'm Brazilian, I'm this. But nobody's going to just like, wow, I'm a very proud person. And I'm actually selfish as well, because I really don't care for the others. And I'm jealous as well. So sometimes when people, and when people get things that I would like to get and I don't, I'm actually very jealous and I envy people. Does anybody talk about yourself like that to others? Someone asks who you are or describe yourself, like we don't, right? First, because you would lose the job, the opportunity of getting a nice job. So please don't do that, okay? But we have a very hard time to talk about who we really are, right? But that's who we are, right? That is, so we are this collection of sentiments, values, and morals, because the collection of the sentiments, values, and morals that we have is what guides our actions, is actually what guides our thoughts. That's who we are. So that's what guides us. That's what guided us, has been guiding us for thousands of years. It's guiding us right now. It's going to keep guiding us when we go back to the spiritual plane and guiding us in the next reincarnations. Okay. And that's why who we are dictates our levels of suffering right now and for future lives as well, and happiness. Okay. That's why when I started in the beginning, I said, well, who we are dictates our level of happiness or suffering, because it is our level of moral and evolution that guides that. Okay. That's why on question 919 on Spirit's book, Kardec asks the spirits, what's the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of wrongdoing, right? Because we know as a spiritist, we're here to grow, we're here to evolve spiritually through the multiple incarnations. But what's the most effective? And he responds something very simple, says, know thyself. Know who you are, right? Because if I don't know who I am, if I don't know what's wrong and right, I will not fix it. There's nothing to be fixed in. It's cool, right? That's why in the AA groups, the first step, which one, is to say, I am an alcoholic. I have a case in the family, I'm an alcoholic, which sadly passed away recently, who never accepted was an alcoholic. So therefore, I don't need treatment, right? So it's the same thing for who we are. If I don't know who I am, there's nothing to be changed. Everything's fine. I'm okay the way I am, right? So very simple. That's simple answer that he tells. Now follow what the philosopher told you. He's mentioning Socrates. Know who you are. Know thyself. Okay. Well, we talk a lot about this in Spiritism. Oh, know thyself. For you to change, you need to know who you are and everything. Yes, that's up to here. I didn't say anything new, anything that you guys didn't know, right? Because it's very easy to say, hey, to change, you need to know yourself. But why it's so difficult to do it? Because one thing is to know. I need to know myself. I need to do it. But why it's so hard for us to do it? Okay. So in the book of the Consoler, on question, and actually the book of the Consoler is psychographed by Chico Xavier. And it's a book where they're in the Millionist group and they ask many questions about different subjects to Emmanuel. So it's a book just like the Spirit's book. It's a book with questions and answers. And in this case, it's Emmanuel answering those questions. Okay. So in the question 233, they ask Emmanuel, why it's taking so long for humans to begin their journey to self-knowledge? It's basically asking Emmanuel, come on, like we're here for 1,000 years. Jesus came 2,000 years ago. Let's say, like, and even Moses come already, right, to tell us to bring us the 10 Commandments. So let's think about, like, with over 2,000 years, we know already the rules. But even think about just Jesus, like 2,000 years, we know what the rule is. We know what should be done. Why is taking so longer? Like 2,000 years later, and we still don't know who we are. We're still having a hardship to do this. Why it's so hard, right? Consider that civilization is there for thousands of years. And Emmanuel says this, that can be explained by the fact that only now can human beings turn inward enough to understand the needs of their souls and dive deeply into the spiritual selves. So he says, yes, because there was a process that needs to happen here. For finally now, you guys in a time that, yes, now you can start looking inside. And he says why. He keeps going. He says, in the past, human existence consisted of fighting against external threats to establish laws of equilibrium between humankind and nature. Many centuries were to pass before humans realized the suitability of joint efforts to overcome common threats. Likewise, the organization of tribes and families and the development of traditions and community experience also required many centuries of struggle and painful trials. Developing a science of relationships and learning how to use a physical resource on their behalf took humans a significant amount of time as well. So what he's saying is here, this for centuries and centuries and centuries, or if you can talk about our millenniums, we lived by the instinct of survival. So can you imagine, for example, the caveman there? Imagine the day, how was the day of a caveman? He has to hunt this really wild animals, way bigger than animals that have now outside. That's what science shows us. Okay, he has to hunt. And it's not as local, let me see which shotgun I have better. No, he has to hunt with something that made by stone in the beginning because I had no clue how to make anything, okay? And then he has to find a way to shelter himself because otherwise it's going to become either a breakfast, lunch, or dinner for some animal out there, okay? And then after a day like that, he goes back to his cave and is like, oh, let me now think about who am I? What am I functioning here? Like, there's no such a thing. He has to survive. He lives like pretty much way closer to an animal by pure instinct than anything else. He has to survive, okay? And I know I went really, really far back, but that's just to be very clear how it is. But let's go even 300 years ago. Just to take, not even a shower, because there's no real kind of showers at the time, this was a bath, just to take a bath. 300 years ago. Do you think someone like, oh, let me open here, just the tap and the water's going to run? No, I had to go to the well, grab I don't know how many buckets, and then come back. And then warm it up the water, and then put in the tub, and then this, and then that. And imagine how long it took it. Let's not even go that far. My parents were born farmers, okay? When they were a child in the farm, the whole family working in the farm, and this is the parents and sick kids, okay? My parents, by the age of 5, were already working in the land, carrying 10 kilos of bags of potatoes on top of their heads. On top of that, they had other people that they hired to help to work the land. And I'm not talking about a farm like in the Brazilian sense of farm. I'm talking about more like a farm in the sense of Canada, like, small farms, okay? I went to visit in 2009. My uncle and my aunt does the whole thing on the two of them on their own, okay? So the labor that we had to do when you go back in history to survive, to put a food on the table, to survive, was much more intense than today. Today, with my uncle and my aunt, but just they have all the machinery that they need. So the two of them, they do the whole farming, the same land that they used to do 70 years ago, in 15 people. Okay, and also needs to. So what happened is, over time, it took us many, many centuries for us to go from the survival mode, or to our focus to be how to make life easier and less heavy and less intense materially. So it's way more fun, like it says here, fighting with the nature in a good way in terms of adapting, okay? Creating civilizations, like it says here, the tribes, the family, the organizations. And first we were like, not that we stopped fighting each other, but before we really, like in the really beginning, I really thought I need to fight to be better. I need to fight with you. And then slowly we learned that no, actually, if we joined our strengths, we can accomplish way more. Okay. Unfortunately, on the financial side, we quite far away from get there. But let's say, for example, we talked this here before. In medicine, if there's no collaboration for every single research center in this planet, we would not have the advance that we have today. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. We wouldn't. Because we learned that if I'm researching here about cancer and I'm keeping whatever I found just for myself, because I'm going to be the only one to find out the cure. But then Tiago's there doing his side, and then he's also keeping himself. And then Denise is doing her, and we don't talk to each other because I want to be just the one. We're not going anywhere. Because I found out something about A, but then you find out something about B, and then Denise find out C. And but I say, when we put A, B, C together, now we get something. But A alone is nothing, C alone is nothing, but took us centuries for us to understand that either we work together or we're not going to go anywhere. Okay. And we needed also this intellectual growth to then now I can analyze things, right? Because do you think that someone like 300 years, 500 years ago, who's working to survive, because if there's disparity these days between classes, imagine at the time, like in the Middle Ages, you have 5% of population was the church and the royal families. The rest is all people working under them, either slaves or semi-slaves there. That's what it was. You survive in mode. You work to get up in the morning to survive. Okay. Now with technology, with the growth of intellectual, we're able to develop technology in a way that now we have to be less worried about when I go outside, I'm going to be eaten by a tiger. No, I don't need to worry about that. Okay, we need to worry about other things. But in general, now we can have a life where I can go to work, I can come home. We have more time. This intellectual growth gave us more time now to actually start to look inside ourselves. On top of that, it gave us the intellectual capacity to make an analysis. Because that's the other thing too. If I don't have the understanding, if I have the intellectual development, how am I going to do an analysis of what's going on around me or what's going inside of me? I don't have even how to do it, right? Again, go back 200, 300 years ago, who had access to reading, writing, and reading, right? Very limited, very, very limited, right? Today, unfortunately, still have millions of people in this planet that don't have access to writing and reading. But in general, it's much better. We do have more access to information thanks to technology, right? That was created to access to information, to reading, to have access to information. And this capacity now to be able to analyze. So it's not a coincidence that Spiritism and Kardec came when? through Illuminism. And Illuminism was when we were breaking with the Dark Ages, and now science is booming. And now, more than ever, we want things to be proved. We want things to be rational. The whole thing, oh, it is like this because God wants to be like this. Like, that doesn't answer the question anymore, right? Yes, God wants to be like this, but why? Why is that? How nature really works, right? So we start to question. We start to be able to develop our intellectual. So now we can have this capacity to do an internal analysis as well. So that's why the planner house always like that to have a first and, well, both together, but you do have to have an intellectual coming first. So then now you can have an analysis of the moral. That's why now in society, no matter how horrible looks out there, we have so many people like never before fighting against inequality, fighting against the wars, fighting against poverty and everything that's happening right now. Because now consciously now we look and say, this is not cool. It is not nice anymore. Then I have shoes in my feet and there's children walking barefoot to school, as I have seen so many in African countries. Okay. Because we're thinking now we're able to look at society and say, this is nice and this is not nice. I don't like to see this. Right? But we need to have this technologies, intellectual growth coming first that took centuries. First, that I don't need to do this labor-intense work anymore, and then allows me to go inside and look at myself. So it was necessary. So that's when Emmanuel says, yeah, that can be explained, and that's kind of the path that should be. You guys need to evolve intellectually first. It takes centuries to not come out of the labor, be more intellectual. So now you can do the analysis. Now you can start to grow and see who you are, right? So that's how he keeps saying in his answer. Now that humankind have reached the peak of their material evolution, however, peak in the sense that, of course, you can keep evolving, right? But it's in a point that we pretty good, okay? They no longer need to stress so deeply about their surroundings and can therefore direct their spiritual energies toward themselves, a fact that leads to the pursuit of self-knowledge with the infinite values of life. Okay, so basically, in the past, we're more connected to external experience, and now we are starting to look more internally. And it's not as a coincidence that more than ever, if you look at the last 20 years, we never spoke so much about mental health, right? Never so much in history we had cases of anxiety, depression. Depression has been considered the illness of the century. Okay, if it keeps growing the way it is, I think I can't remember which year it is, we're going to have 1 billion people with the diagnosis of depression. Okay, and why? Because now I start to look around and say, I don't like it. This hurts. What I see around me that hurts, and what I'm seeing inside me hurts, right? Now we start to be more aware that, yeah, it's nice that we have, and I have nothing against the technology I have today, nothing, but that alone does not bring me happiness. That, yeah, I can have my fancy electric car, I can have this, and I'm all pro electrical cars just to make sure, because it's good for nature, but I can have it, but none of this brings me true happiness. Because if it was like that, then rich people would not take medication for depression, and they do. Okay, a lot of them. So this started because now we have the time to go home and see, how do I feel at the end of the day? How was my day? Right? So now more than ever, we start to look inside, because before I had to go working on the land and had no time to think about it, and it's heavy, and then I have to wake up at 4 a.m, and then before sunrise, and now I don't have to go this anymore. Now I can think. Right? So that's why Emmanuel brings to us, that was so hard for us, why it took us so long to get to this path, because we need to do this part. Of course, the plan wasn't first to have this huge disparity between intellectual and moral, right? The idea is that, yeah, one has to come before the other, but kind of closer. Unfortunately, we kind of are here. Technology is like, amazing. Morally is like, da, 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 da. We're taking quite a long time, right? But the bigger the pain, the faster we're gonna get there, because that's what it is, right? It's like the famous conversation between Jesus and Publius Lentulus, where he said, "Hey, Publius, if you read the book 2,000 years ago, if you didn't read it, because it's an amazing book, it's fantastic, actually." He told Publius, said, "Hey, Publius, you can follow me now by love, or you can follow me in 1,000 years by pain," right? And if you read the book, you know it took 1,000 years. And the choice wasn't quite the right one, but fine, because today Publius is Emmanuel, who's actually giving this teaching here to us. Okay. So he learned, and it's okay. It just took a little bit longer because he decided, at the time he thought that his pride as a Roman senator was more important, right? And but it's okay. And in the end, it's all worked out. Okay. But that's what it is. Now, more than ever, we start looking inside, and we're not happy with the world scene, and we could not be happy, because what's happening in society now is a collective. It's a combination of what all of us have inside, because the majority of us didn't have the pride, vanity, the eager to have more and more and more. What's out there wouldn't be happy. Because we kind of act as if you have nothing to do what's happening there. Because especially it's not here in Canada, it's over there while we are part of it, right? Especially because, again, this incarnation, we are here. But who's saying that in a previous I wasn't there trying to create the war, right? How many of us probably now outside of those societies are here fighting for those, being part of organizations, fighting against those wars, fighting against poverty, because in a previous one I was there creating, and then asking this one like, oh, now I got it wrong. So can you put me in another, so I can now start to fight against and fix what I started or I helped to start. Okay, so to think that we have nothing to do what's going, no matter where is in the world, let's think twice. Okay, because on this one here right now, but we don't know where we were before and what we're doing and what we did. Okay. But there's another reason why it's so hard for us to look inside of ourselves. So first was this, right? Historically, we had to get to this point where now we have the capacity to look in. Okay. But there is that because as imperfect spirits, it's very hard for us to accept that we cause pain to others, to ourselves. Hard to accept that we are proud, that we are jealous, because we always see people being jealous of us, but we never say, oh, I'm jealous of someone. I actually was watching this guy on Leandro Carnal. I think a lot of people know, is a professor of history in Brazil, and he says there is a research that was done that they asked people, do you think that people are jealous? And 90% of the people who answered said yes, other people are jealous. And then when they asked, are you jealous person? They said no. I think only 10% said yes, I am. So if 90% of people I think that 90% people are jealous, okay? But then the same people that said 90% said that they're jealous, people just said I am not, then 90% of people are not jealous, right? So basically, it's easy to see on the others. People are always jealous of me, but I'm never jealous of other people. So very hard for us, right? Very hard for us to see that on ourselves and accept that actually I'm just like the other ones. I'm jealous, I'm greedy. Actually, I want more than what I need. And there's absolutely nothing wrong on trying to grow. If I have my company, if I have my profession, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? The problem is that it's never enough, and I'm never happy with what I have right now. I'm just happy if I have the next one. I'm just happy if I have the next one. I have the next one, and you live for something that's material and forget the spiritual. Okay. Um, and fun enough is because my vanity, my selfishness, my greed, and my pride, I have a hard time to see that I'm proud, that I'm selfish, that I have vanity. So see how the circle goes here? Because I'm proud, I don't see that I'm proud. But because I don't see that I'm proud, I keep going being proud, and we keeping in this loop. And that's why it's very, very important for us to start to do the self-analysis, to look inside of ourselves, see who we are. Because if you don't break the cycle, well, it's fine. Like, God's not in a rush. He has literally the whole time in the universe. He's not in a rush. But the problem is that we're going to keep going through the same sufferings and difficulties every single incarnation that we come. Okay, because what we call suffering actually is just an education opportunity, just a wake-up calls that life brings to us, that God in his merciful way sends to us, like, wake up. It's time for you to be less proud. It's time for you to have more patience. It's time for you to have more resignation. It's time for you to think about more your spiritual. It's time for you to be less materialistic. That's what the suffering is opportunity. We call suffering, but we shouldn't even call suffering. This education, but we're gonna have to go through it's the same thing. You're in school. Well, now we don't fail kids anymore, but in my time we used to fail. Okay, and if you didn't learn the class, what you do, you redo it. You didn't learn again, you redo it, right? And that's what's gonna be. You didn't learn, well, next incarnation I'm gonna have to make you give again the same lessons for you to understand it again. And it's going to be the same lessons in different formats, but in the end, bottom line, I'm giving you the same lesson. Okay. You didn't understand again, no problem. The next reincarnation, you're going to go through the same lesson. That's actually happened to all of us here right now, going through the same lesson. I don't know for how many reincarnations, and we're here. Okay. So that's what's important, because if we don't, we're not going to evolve. And we're going to keep having to go through the same sufferings, the same difficulties, because we didn't learn the lesson. And unless, you're okay with life the way it is, if you're okay with the sufferings, if you're okay with the difficulties, then fine. But I don't, right? I think it's better to have a little self-love and say, I would like life to be a little bit easier, right? And the fun is easier, not in a sense that now everything in the life externally, it's going to be fine. But it means that internally, it's going to be fine. Because what makes us unhappy is not what's happening outside us. It's what's happening inside here. And a good example is if you look at any spirit that came in a mission in this planet, okay, start with Jesus, but I'm going to take Jesus out of the equation because he's so above us, okay? But look, Chico Xavier, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, were any of them rich, without problems, easy life to go through? Not at all, okay? Chico Xavier had problems right from childhood, being abused by an aunt, and even as a spiritist, has been attacked. He has been taken to court. He has to suffer slander. He name it, okay? But because his moral values were so much higher than ours, he went through it in peace, right? Yeah, I had his moments where he went to a man, he's like, hey, man, come on. And then man was like, just keep working. It's fine. Just keep working. Well, you think you're going to abandon it? Just keep going. And he goes, okay. And they kept working. He was not worried if his bank account was this. I don't know. He lived on a very modest life, the very modest retirement that he had in salary, and then after retirement in Brazil, and was okay with that. He was not desperate because he needed to have a better house, and not desperate because he needed to have a car, nothing. Internally, no matter what life threw at him, he took a deep breath and kept going. Mother Teresa, same thing. Actually, for Mother Teresa, I'll say life is to serve others. That's what's life. It's not to serve myself, it's to serve others. So that's what it is. And then in the end, that's the peace Let's be very honest. That's what we're all looking for. The happiness in terms of peace of mind, where I can look inside myself and I like what I see, and where I don't things don't make me angry anymore. That I'm not always agitated. I'm not always anxious about things. Everybody would like to be in that, right? But that's not an external change. It has to be internal. Because what made difference between these missionaries, the spirits, and us is not they didn't have problems in their lives, is how they dealt with the problems. And how we're going to deal with the problems, like I said in the beginning of the lecture, it's going to depend on our sentiments, values, and morals, because they are going to guide our feelings. They are going to guide our actions. Right? So yes, it is hard for us to look inside of us and recognize. It is very hard. Okay. But we need to do, because otherwise we are going to keep suffering, and I'm pretty sure none of us wanted this. Okay, and that's where Spiritism comes in and helps us. Because the same way that my vanity and my selfishness and my pride makes me keep acting as a selfish and proud, and and keep that circle, the opposite is true as well. The more I know myself, the more I look inside and I really know what I have to change, the more I understand the divine laws. And through Spiritism, when we understand the laws of action and reaction, when we understand the reincarnation process, when we understand that when I die, I'm not going to go to hell, I'm not going to go to heaven. Because honestly, if I'm going to go to heaven or heaven, fine, I don't need to fix anything. If I did everything wrong, I'm not going to go to heaven, I'm going to do this forever. I don't need to worry about what I did, how I'm going to fix, because it's not going to make any difference, right? But that's not what happens. We know that hell doesn't exist, heaven doesn't exist. But it exists is this constant opportunity of growth and bettering ourselves. So when Spiritism gives us that to us, and one thing that Spiritism also gives to us that's very important is that the free will, the laws of action and reaction attached to the free will, that I understand that I have the power to change my life, that I have the power to change what's going to happen to me. I have the power to change if we're going to have a life with more suffering or less. Then it's like, great, because before I was dependent on God. He would decide what's going to happen to me, right? But now it's depending on me. Then I said, okay, so if it's depending on me, I need to change who am I. I need to change myself. And so now you get a different cycle here, a good one, a positive one, where the more I know the divine laws, the more I can look inside myself and know who I am. The more I know who I am, the more I understand the divine laws. The more I understand the divine laws, the more I can analyze, and then I can go in progression and better myself each time. Okay. So that's why it's important, right? To look inside of us, to look what really is the path, what God really expects of us, and then look inside. Okay. But there's one thing that we need to remember is that to recognize ourselves, something I need to be careful, is that recognizing our imperfections and our shadows is not for us to feel guilty, okay? Because that's not going to help us. There's two extremes here that are not going to help us to make any changes, okay? One is when I look inside myself and I punish myself. I'm a horrible person. Oh my gosh, everybody's better than me. And I'm such a selfish person and I'm horrible. And I just keep punishing myself. Because when you get in that state, then I'm not going to make changes. Because that's who I am and I don't deserve anything. I'm such a bad person. Look all the horrible things that I did. And that's why we have the bless of forgetting every time we reincarnate. Because imagine if we remember everything that we did. Imagine 2,000 years ago, what pretty much savage 2,000 years ago. It would be horrible to remember things that I did in there. But there's a mercy here that makes us forget everything, right? Temporarily. Why? Because keeping looking back, it would just make us to punish ourselves, to feel horrible about ourselves. So looking into ourselves and trying to figure out who I am is not about punishing. Is because then I'm not going to change. I'm just going to keep punishing. The tendency is to believe that I don't deserve anything positive. I'm such a bad person, and that's it. And then I don't change. Then I'm just staying there in this process. And we do this here as incarnated, and we have spirits that do this in the spiritual plane for centuries, punishing themselves because I killed someone or whatever I did, and I don't deserve anything. When the truth is, we all deserve, and we actually all loved by God, because God loves us regardless of anything, and the chance to change, to grow, is equal to everybody. Okay, so that's not good. So looking inside ourselves is just to recognize and see, okay, now I understand that this is characteristics of my personality. Is to look and say, why when someone do this to me, I get so angry? What really makes me angry? Or why do I get offended when someone says such a thing for me? Why offends me? Because two things: either it's true, so it should not offend me. I have to say, no, actually you're right. And if it's not true, then why am I offended? It's not true. But it's offended, usually it's catching either on our vanity or pride somewhere inside of us. That's why Divaldo says, if you offend someone, it's your problem. If you get offended by someone, then it's your problem as well. So if someone offends you, that's their problem. If you get offended, then it's your problem. Look inside and see what's going on there. Okay. But we also cannot go to the other extreme, where I look inside myself and I know I'm very proud. I know I have my vanity, and I say, you know what? And that's who I am. And people have to accept me the way I am, and that's it. And I'm not going to change, because I have heard this. I have heard this speech before. That's who I am, and either people accept me the way I want. I'm not changing, because, and it's true, we do need to accept each other. We need to bear ourselves and accept the others the way they are. But to do this speech that's who I am changing, you have the right. It's free will, but it comes with a price for that as well, right? So those two extremes do not work, do not bring changes, and just gonna keep us coming over and over again for the same lessons that we call sufferings. Okay, so that's why we need to be careful as well. I want to do this self-analysis. Okay, it's neither to punish, but it's also to recognize who I am and think that's who I am, and I don't need to change. Okay, so it's for us to look and say, wow, I need to work better. If someone said to me and offended me, actually, no, the truth is, it's true what they said, and my pride didn't like it. So no, I better let it go. Okay, I should not get offended with this person. Is to look at ourselves and say, oh my gosh, every time someone does this to me, I get so angry. I need to try to control myself and get less angry. And you know what? Maybe the next time I'm going to get angry again, but then I'm conscious of, I failed again. But being around the third, today I was able to bite my tongue and and realize. And that's what we do. We recognize and we try to slowly change. Next time I'm in the same situation, I'm going to try to act in a different way. That's how it is, to recognize and try to correct. That's how it is. That's how we evolve, right? And the more we do this, the more we know ourselves, the more we really try to see, am I really doing this because it makes me happy? Or I'm doing this because society asks me to do that, or because I think because I'm worried about what the other people think, or how many people choose professions they're forced to do in the professions that they don't even like, but because what they really like doesn't make money, like this one, or because the family forces them. Oh no, you have to be a lawyer. Your father was a lawyer, so you have to be a lawyer. Your brother's a lawyer, your uncle's a lawyer, so you have to be a lawyer. But I don't like it. But I'm going to become a lawyer, because what I really wanted to be is, I don't know, something that makes less money than a lawyer, and in society gives less status, because that's what we worry about, status, right? That doesn't make anybody, and it's temporary. It's temporary. I know someone who went for lawyer school, then he finished, grabbed it, in Brazil says you put in the drawer and close, and bought a bar and went to be a owner of a bar because that's where he would like to do it. Yeah, did you guys want the diplomas here? But he did it. At least he was able to say, okay, I'm going to finish university. It's here, but I'm going to do something else. And I know another one who became a dentist, wanted to be an architect, became a dentist because the family forced him to be a dentist. What he did work for a few years, hated, and then he went to do the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And then at the end of the Camino, he decided to stay in Portugal working construction. He told the parents, I'm not coming back, bye. But at least they had the courage to at some point say, this is wrong. This does not make me happy. That's not who I am. I want something different. But how many people stay in the professions that they don't like just for status? Because apparently if you are the cleaning person in the hospital, you're less than the doctor or the physiotherapist or the nurse. And I'm going to tell you one thing, in pandemic, we're talking about the frontline workers, and everybody thought about the nurses and doctors. That's the only thing we spoke about. But the first one line of defense on any infection, on any hospital, is called the cleaning team. First one. If they don't come to work for a week, I can guarantee you that the level of people dying of hospital-acquired infections go skyrocket 1 week. If the CO doesn't show up for a whole month, no difference to us. The hospital runs the same way. Okay. But we don't see as a status. Cleaning person, this doesn't give status. Okay. And the truth is, no matter which profession we do, no matter who we are, we are important. It is important. We are all part of society. Remember, we have to take centuries to understand that we only can be where we are if we collaborate. So in any hospital, in any company, no matter what, we all only exist because we collaborate. Okay. And nobody's less than that. Because if you live in an office and the person who does the cleaning doesn't show up for a week, look for your garbage can. What's going to happen? You're gonna work in the middle of a garbage. I don't think it's pleasant. Okay. So we're all important. Okay. But we're so led by material desires and status and what the other people think that then we forget to be who we are. Look what we really are and look inside of ourselves and love ourselves the way we are and just try to change the things that we need to change. Okay. And there's many ways to find out who we are. Okay. One of the things that actually helped me is what actually was therapy. Doing therapy helped me a lot. Okay. I went by pain. I should have gone by love because someone had told me already before, like, you should do therapy. I went by pain because life had to really stab me in the back to say, now you're going. Like, yeah, now I'm going. And it was the best thing ever because it helped me to understand who I was, how I process things, how I see things. They said, maybe it's just the way you see things. Maybe you think people thinking that about you and they're not. It's you who think that. And then a lot of things that help me to understand how I process things, how I am. Okay. And that's just one of the way. There's no recipe that's like, oh, everybody has it. No, but everybody's going to have your own recipe, how to figure out. Some people like to do diaries at the end of the day. What I did, what I have to be grateful, what I need to correct, what to do, right? And there's the very famous recipe from St. Augustine that's in the Spiritist book, and it's in the Gospel according to the Spiritist. St. Augustine used to be every day before he goes to bed, he would do a self-analysis. He would say all the good that he did, all the good that he could have done and he didn't. So, I could have done that thing and I didn't, I could have held that door while the person was passing and just didn't bother to do it, right? So he didn't look like, oh, what's good and bad. No, he did everything that was good, that he helped. Everything that he did that was not good is like, oh, that I shouldn't have done. That was not nice. And all the good that he could have done and he didn't. And the next day he would do the same. And the next day he would try to do better and do the same analysis at the end of the day. That's another way. Okay. So each one of us is going to have to find your own recipe, your own way to, how do I look inside myself? with love, with kindness, and with compassion for ourselves, and recognize, hey, I have a lot of things, good things about me, and I like it. And yes, there's these shadows here that I need to improve. Okay, that's what it is about. And that's why knowing who we are, it's so important. Okay, because it is part of our journey as a spirits to evolve, but we need to know who we are so we can evolve. Okay. Thank you very much. That's what I have bring to you guys today. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Nothing on the internet. It's a good way of starting the year, right? We figure out who we are and start this process for the. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, you talk about our personality, weaknesses like jealous, pride, etc. And if we compare ourselves to people, for example, have problems with alcohol, but we don't recognize it, what should be the first step to recognize our weaknesses and improving ourselves as people? And as the theme of your lecture, of course, suggests, knowing who I am.
So I don't know if I quite understood the question.
To compare with the people who have problems with alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol. Yeah.
Not recognize this. Okay?
Yeah.
And about myself, about our weaknesses.
Oh, if we don't
sometimes,
recognize?
Yeah, sometimes we don't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What is the first step to recognize this? We need to find a friend, ask about our weaknesses, or I need to find therapy.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. If you don't figure out, if you don't do the self-analysis, you're not gonna change, right? So just like an alcoholic, you need to first figure out, like, yes, I do have a problem. Then I can try to find a solution. Okay. And the way to look is exactly what we're talking about. There's many ways. Some people, we can start to, as a spiritist, we have St. Augustine who brought us the recipe. Do a self-analysis at the end of the day. What did I do right? What did I wrong? What could I have done different? What could I have done better, right? Some people it's through therapy. Some people, sometimes the spiritist plan send people around and say, and actually it happened with me, and it's funny because it just came to my mind 2 days ago. Someone told me something about, let's see, I'm in Canada 27 years. About 28, 29 years ago, someone came to me, we're at an event, and someone in a very polite way came to me and said, be careful what you did, because you actually judged someone without having all the information, right? And then this came to my mind 2 days ago. I was like, shoot, I'm still doing it many, many times, right? It's like, wow. So they send someone to come like, yeah, Teresa, see this aspect of your personality, it needs to be changed, right? And I still have hardship to change it. Okay? So that's what life does. A lot of time life is going to come, and sometimes someone's going to comment with you, it's like, hey, what you did yes wasn't cool, right? Yeah. See what you're doing? Yeah, that's not going to really lead to that. And they come. And usually those are the people who are going to come in a very calm way. The spiritual plan is always going to find a way to show to us, like, yeah, not that way. Either because someone close to you is going to tell you, or because I did something, the results are going to be something like, oh, by acting this way, resulting this way, this was not good. So next time I cannot do that. Or I can look and say, who cares? Yeah, but it went wrong. But it went wrong for me. It went wrong to the others. I don't care. Because it's a choice. Because everything is going to depend on my moral values, right? I can care and I cannot care. Unless, like, no, it was bad for me. Now I care. If I'm very selfish and I don't care by being selfish, right? So life is always going to find ways, okay? What's to tell you, not good. But that's why it's important to have the self-awareness. Because if I don't have the self-awareness, no matter how much life shows me, right or wrong, I don't care. I'm right. It's the way that I want. I don't care if it's right or wrong. But if I start to have the self-awareness, of like, oh, I need, I change. Every time those opportunities come to life, either through therapy, either to my self-analysis, or because someone just come to you and say, or just because the result or I did, I'm saying, oh, I get it. Yeah, this is wrong. I need to change. So next time I need to try to do it in a different way. I need to try to do better. So that's how it goes. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Teresa, and thanks everyone for being here today. We're going to say bye to our people on the internet because we're going to prepare for our passes.